Hello and welcome to another edition of Anderson County Conversation. Folks, we got another great show lined up for you today. We want you to sit back, relax, be sure to call all your family and friends and tell them on the air. We have someone real special with us today from Knoxville, Channel 6, WATE over there, ABC affiliate. We have Miss Lori Tucker with us today.
Hi, Don.
And I'd like to say welcome to Anderson County again. I know you've recently been here.
To the beautiful Aspire Park.
Did you enjoy that
gorgeous.
over there?
I cannot wait to go back. Right when we got there to do our 6 Visits Your Neighborhood series, which we love. Bo Williams, my co-anchor, and I and our whole team were out there. And I immediately texted my husband and I said, we are coming here to hike, go have lunch at the Pearl, and just have a great time.
It's a beautiful place. Did you get to see it at Christmas at all?
No, my daughter did and brought our granddaughters here, and they just loved it.
Yeah, it's a walk through what they light it all up and everything.
Magical.
And it is the largest private park, I think, in the state of Tennessee, you know.
I believe it.
You know, Lori, Anderson County itself is so diverse. You know, you're going from the technical end of it to the nuclear end of it to now you have the regattas here. You know, people come all over the colleges from everywhere. Then you have Lake City situation over there where they come in and ride the four-wheelers up in on Bryceville and everything. So it's just very diverse, isn't it, the community?
It really is, and we had a chance to speak with Mayor Frank and a lot of other different folks from the nuclear side of it and the business side of it, the progressive nature of that and what that's going to mean for this area, to tourism and events. And the Lavender Festival, you know, all kinds of things that happen in this area that are so much fun. And you're right, diverse is a great way to put it.
You know, when you mentioned the Lavender Festival, that's where I grew up, in that area.
Beautiful.
I grew up in the Jackson Square area. It has changed a lot because it was shops then, and now businesses. You know, it was Bechtel Jacobs. It's something else now, and it's about the only real place in the square is Big Ed's Pizza, and it was Service Drug when I was a kid, and it had the best counter in town, and we really didn't want Big Ed's to come because the counter was so good in the drugstore, you know, and it came in 70, and I was probably just my 9th grade year in school, but you know, Big Ed's has become an Oak Ridge tradition.
Now you're glad Big Ed's came, aren't you?
Yeah, and it wouldn't have. It's got a funny story I want to tell you about it. Our swim coach, Mr. Lewis, went down to Huntsville, Alabama, and Big Ed. It was in partnership with another man with Big Ed's Pizza down there, and his kids were on the swim team, and we had a great big swim. You know, it's big with our big pool we have. And Mr. Lewis talked Big Ed to coming up. We need a good pizza place up here. So he sold his half out to his partner, and there's still a Big Ed's in Huntsville too.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
1961 down there. Now they moved, but it's and they serve other stuff too, but it's the same recipe. I haven't been and would like to go just to see if it was like, you know.
You should go.
Well, we're going to get into a little bit of your history. You know, I think that if I looked it up correctly, you went to Arkansas State. Is that correct?
Arkansas State in Jonesboro. I received a scholarship to go there, and I started interning because I knew pretty quickly I wanted to do this for a living. I wasn't sure behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, but I love reading, I love writing, much like you. And so I was able to talk my professor into recommending me for an internship at the ABC affiliate in Little Rock, which is where my parents were, North Little Rock. And I got it, and I lucked out, and I thank God every day for placing me there because I learned so much. And you know, Don, you know this more than anybody, you've got to be ready when the opportunity strikes. And I interned there for 2 years, 2 summers, and I was able to get a reporter's position out of that. My advice to interns or other young people, work hard. Just work hard. Put your all into it, because the news director noticed that, and said, you know, I think you might work out as a reporter. Let's see how it goes.
So you were really started out at, I guess, Little Rock would be a medium market, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be
Yes.
a small market,
No.
you know. And
Yeah.
then I think your next step, I don't know how long you stayed there. It was you went to, I know, Houston and San Antonio. Am I correct?
You are correct. I was in Little Rock for a couple of years, and then my dad, I'll back up a little bit, you don't make any money when you first start out. And so I had to live at home. And I tried to live in an apartment, but it was between paying my utilities and getting a new pair of boots. So I thought, I can't live this close to the edge. So my mom and dad, who were very close, I moved back home with them. My dad was an architect for the military. He was sent to San Antonio, to one of the air bases there, to do some work. And so I just called the TV station in San Antonio, the NBC affiliate, KMOL at the time. It's WOAI now. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. They hired me over the phone. I did have to send them a tape. Back then we had tapes. It's not digital reels like you do now, but I sent them my tape and they hired me. And
Just right off the bat.
right off the bat, I was a general assignments reporter. And let me tell you, San Antonio was very different than Little Rock, Arkansas. So I got a big bite out of covering different things.
How was it different? I'd like to really get
Culturally different. It's a huge melting pot. You know, I got to cover the Pope when he visited way back there.
You got more military bases.
Military bases, you have more of a Hispanic population. I really was immersed in the culture there. It was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. It's a beautiful city. It's a smart city. Our station was right there on the river, which was gorgeous. We had all kinds of river parades. I just did a whole lot of different things. We were about a block from the Alamo.
I was
just
fortunate
to put that.
enough to be exactly where you were. I went to a school board national conference, and I'd actually been in when I was in the Air Force. I'd gone to basic training at Lackland, but I was there for a very short time, and so I never got to see the real city up till a few years ago.
Yeah.
I stayed actually down near the convention center.
Okay.
And it was kind of strange because the people were so nice that I would walk over. I've talked to anybody. You know who I am. So
Yes, I do, Don.
I would walk over and talk to the cab drivers, and they kind of got to liking me. They all parked out there, and so they were trying to get me to talk me into moving down there. Said, we'd like you to stay. I said, look, I'm going to go on back to Tennessee. I like the place down here, and I
Good
could
place to visit.
walk to the Alamo and up through Macy's there, you know,
Right.
in that area. Saw the old fire department. It used to sit there down.
Yes.
Kind of unique looking place, you
Yes.
know.
The station where I was is no longer there. They moved, and I was there so many years ago, but I worked there for 8 years. And Ed Cheviot, the general manager, I guess saw something in me and said, would you like to anchor? And so I started anchoring the 5 o'clock news, and I was 23.
God.
So I lucked out big time.
You know, I
Made a
think-
lot of mistakes.
Don't you think sometimes, though, too, I know that what I do is just happened. You know, I didn't go to school to be a journalist or go to school to be anything. That was
Right.
not my forte. But sometimes networking, you meet someone and you meet someone else. I think it really does help. And you know, you know, in your career as far as, and I think that I watch you and have watched you.
Thank you.
And you've got a kindred spirit about yourself.
Oh.
You come across genuine.
Thank you, Don.
I mean, I'm serious about that. And I think the other people that view you see that in you.
Thank you.
And you know, people like people that's real, don't you think?
Well, and I think they see if you're not pretty quickly. If you watch someone over and over again, you're going to kind of go, wait a minute, where's the real person in there? Because the camera doesn't lie. Now, the older I get, yeah, it doesn't lie. I keep saying, move the camera back a little bit. But no, I don't care about that. I am so blessed to be doing this for as long as I have. But
well, you've got over, if I'm correct on this, I did my homework, you've got over 30 years over here in the Knoxville area right
I
here.
do, and timing is everything. And I thought, I wonder if Don knows this. I don't know when this airs, But Saturday, June 7th, is my 32nd anniversary at WATE. So this is perfect timing.
I saw where you when you had your 30th. I pulled it up online and watched it on there. And something that I was going to go into, I noticed that a lot of times, like I really like Don Hudson that just left. And I noticed that people will come and some of them will stay a year, 6 months, and maybe they're going to go to a large market. Maybe they're going to go into something different. Some people change careers, and but I notice there is a lot of turnover in it, and that's unusual for people to stay 30 years at a place.
It really is.
Didn't used to be that way. You know?
No, it didn't. But I used to say that my career was kind of backwards because I started in a larger market than Knoxville. Little Rock is a couple of markets larger. Then I went to San Antonio, and that's in the 30s. Then I went to Houston, which is top 10. And my husband and I both worked there for competing stations. I anchored weeknights. We had our children, our two precious girls who are grown now and living in Knoxville. We're so blessed. 2 grandchildren, lights of my life. But we never saw each other when we were in Houston. We thought, this is it. This is great. We've made it. We're in the top 10. This is awesome. He was gone every weekend covering sports. I was working nights. And I did not want strangers raising my children. We had somebody watching our kids, and I thought, we can't do this. Let's figure out something. So we prayed about it. And out of the blue, WATE called me. And I went, what? And Steve said, WATE, he interned at Channel 8 back when it was Channel 26. He went to UT
You're going
Knoxville.
back on my time, Lord.
But he's not even from here. He's from Nashville. So it really was a God thing and a full circle thing. And when we came here, I thought, I'd really like to put my roots down here. And the station was very good to me and made it worthwhile to make the move here.
I go back to the era where we got 2 channels in black and white, and it'd roll.
Oh, my
goodness. When I was a kid, and my dad was kind of funny, but there was things on 26 at ABC that we couldn't get, and kids really liked back then. And I begged him to put up a 26, and 2 channels is all we need. And then finally, I got one of those loops that you put on the back of your portable TV.
Yeah.
Where you could.
I remember those.
But it would still come and go. It was not, till we got cable came in, we were just at, you
had to go outside and play.
But Laura, you really didn't know any different.
No, that's
you
all we
didn't have
had.
anything to compare it to,
Right.
Like you do today, you know.
And that's why I am so grateful to viewers who weigh in on social media, who call still, or will email me, because I know they have so many choices. So for them to watch us, I am beyond grateful, and I do not take that for granted.
Well, I think that probably people switch around, so many channels, but I always tell everybody, I said, I really like the way you and Bo do it, and I really just like the way that your channel handles everything.
Thank you.
I think it works out really, really well.
That means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
I want to know one thing, you've had so many experiences in Knoxville, and I know recently the new Smoky Stadium, Covenant Health Park opened up. You were there on opening night. All these special things you go out and do.
Yeah.
You go out and talk to civic organizations. I know a lot about that. But tell us some of the things in these 30 years that have really you just don't forget. What are some of the things that are?
Oh boy, that's a good question, Don. Yes, we cover the big things, and I remember when the Smokies moved out, to Kodak, and that still felt new, 25 years ago, and I'm thinking, wow, where does the time go? And then to have this jewel of a stadium here, that's amazing. So all the different big things, we've certainly had big cases here. That are often tragic, but as a journalist, you want to get it right for the victims' families and just for the process of representing and being the voice for news and what's going on. But I've got to tell you, my favorite stories that stay with me are the people stories, the people I meet. One example is Derek Anderson. He is on the radio, WLAF, in Campbell County, in La Follette. And I met Derek at an event where I was MC in Campbell County several years ago. And he's a big young man, tall guy, and he comes up and he said, "Hi, my name is Derek Anderson, and I'm on the radio, and I'm really good." And I said, "Oh, are you, Derek?" And so I asked his boss, Jim, and he said, "Yes, you'll have to come see him sometime." Well, I knew that Derek had autism. He's on the spectrum. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go surprise him. So I got a camera crew, and we went to WLAF and surprised him because he had told me he was a fan. And to see his pure delight and joy, and to watch him on the radio, someone who may not look you in the eye when they're talking to you and exhibits some of the signs of being on the spectrum, then you put him in front of that microphone and he goes. It's like the heavens opened up and he's got this gift. It's truly amazing to watch.
That's kind of a Lord, that's what you're talking about. It's like you were speaking of. And I truly believe it. I believe it's a Lord thing.
I do too. And you know, Don, I'll be having a bad day, which is few and far between. But every now and then we all have a day that just doesn't go right. And it never fails. 9 times out of 10, I'll get an email from Derek. And he always ends the email with, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me."
What a good song, too.
Oh,
you know,
and he'll sing it and send me that. He's a good singer. But, you know, people like that, people who have overcome adversity, people who quietly make such a difference and don't want any recognition. You know, it may be like pulling teeth for me to get them to tell their story, and you've run into that as well. And those really are the true heroes among us.
In my situation, I just got through writing an article, and it's about a guy that was a national Frisbee champion in Oak Ridge, Danny Sanders. And he went on to only played his senior year in football because he was out in South Africa doing Frisbee, so they found out he could throw a football, and he was really good our senior year. We played in front of Neyland Stadium. Then Baylor beat Oak Ridge. They were prep school and went on to win the national title. And Danny went on to Carson Newman and still holds a lot of records. And he got drafted by the Jets and went and played Canadian League ball and played in the USFL, and then came back to Carter High School and coached young kids and taught school but he's really never really got the recognition that he deserves. And so you may have run across this thing too. It was my goal when I sat down and really talked to him that it's not about me. I like people to get recognized for accomplishment, especially when they get into my age group, because, you know, we've lost a lot of my people that I went to school with. And he deserves to, but they deserve it.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel, I know that you've had those same experiences. It makes you feel good to, you know, for them to get to see that, the public, you know.
I think so. And if it can make someone's day a little better, or if you can help someone on a spiritual level, if they don't have faith, if maybe I can get someone to share their faith and that transforms someone, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's not my platform, but certainly if that opportunity presents itself, I'm like, Lord, don't let me hurt anybody with my words, you know. Yeah. So that's kind of the genesis of what I do.
Yeah.
But I just want to be a great journalist. I want to be fair, and it's very difficult, especially these days with the political climate, to not have people try to read into what you're saying. And I don't give my opinion. Nobody knows how I voted. Nobody knows how I feel, and I want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
They don't need to know.
You know, this station is ACTV is what it's called, is a cooperative between the county government, the Anderson County Schools, the Clinton city schools, and of course in our county we have Oak Ridge city schools too. So, but if you were given some advice to some of these students that are thinking about going into journalism or going into print media now is kind of changing.
It's all changing.
It's changing heavy. Yes, it is. What advice would you give to let's say a high school student that really they've already decided maybe they want to pursue this career? If you got some advice for them?
Oh, absolutely. And I talk to students all the time. These days, I didn't have the luxury of this. You didn't either. But these days, so many schools, and there are so many great schools here that already have broadcasting abilities. They do newscasts at the high school level, and that are broadcast,
like we have our station
correct.
here, yeah.
And so I think this is such a good training ground. So if you're interested at all, start working at this level, which is wonderful experience. And
Something you probably didn't have at that time.
I had nothing like that. I really had to make a lot of mistakes and learn as I went. Certainly in college I learned the basics of ethics and communication law. And I don't know if you'll agree with me here, I think for the most part, if you have that natural ability to write in a conversational way, that's kind of hard to teach. You can teach it. Storytelling, exactly. So it's not impossible to teach, but it's really great if you're naturally gifted at that and just kind of can hone it in a little bit. I'm known for liking short sentences, quick, quick, quick. Let's get to the point. And so I try to help our young producers coming in to, instead of a 15-word sentence, let's chop it down to 5. Let's see how we can do this. But back to your point, for students watching, read. Look at your history. You don't know where you're going unless you know where we've been. And just be familiar with all that. Make sure you read everything you get your hands on, read the newspaper, watch us, go online, which is what most young people do today, watch us online. Start thinking about the types of stories you would like to do. What kind of journalist do you want to be? These days there are so many opportunities. You can do podcasts, you can do crime reporting, you can do political reporting, but it's different than it used to be because you can get it out like that immediately on so many different platforms, and I love that.
The thing that's really changed on print media, I know that Oak Ridge newspaper, and Oak Ridge is owned by Gannett now, USA Today. We used to have a big, and it was privately owned at one time, but we had a big newspaper, and they're down now to where we have just one person runs it, and they report to the Sentinel.
Right.
To Gannett, and which is hard on, they're really doing the printing, they're doing everything.
Right.
And it's, you don't get quite as much news. And I know the Clinton Courier's here is once a week. Print media has really changed, though.
It's really changed, and it makes me so sad because I love newspapers. I respect newspaper reporters because it's all right there in black and white. I have to tell a story in a minute 30. I'm not taking anything away from what we do or what print journalists do, but they've got to get it all there, and it's there. I used to joke and say ours has been, we put it on the air and it's shot off to Mars. That's not necessarily the case. It always lives somewhere, and we want it to be accurate. But it's just a different way of storytelling. But I miss picking up my newspaper and turning the pages and seeing story after story after story that's local.
Yeah. Is there somebody that you've interviewed too that, I know for me, not to use an example, sometimes people say, well, you can't do this. And when they tell me that, I use it to to help me,
Oh, sure.
And so they said, well, I'd like to interview Johnny Majors when he was living. I said, I'd really like to interview him. And I knew Marshall Andy.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Don, I think I can handle that for you. Well, We ended
Oh.
up getting him over here, and his recall was unbelievable.
Oh,
But
yeah, I
was
got to interview him as well. He was amazing.
amazing. He could go
Yeah.
back to high school and everything. But I was sitting there, Lori, next to him. And of course, like I say, my parents are deceased and everything. And my dad loved Johnny Majors. And I was really sitting there thinking, am I really interviewing him? You ever had that moment if you're, somebody that, it just kind of like everything's flowing good, and am I really doing this? For me, it was just real special,
Oh, sure. I mean, there have been so many people through the years, back to when I was a really young reporter in San Antonio. And back then, they would send a reporter to Hollywood, to Los Angeles, and interview all the stars in the upcoming shows on the network. And it was kind of a cattle call, if you will, And they put me up at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Here I am, just this young girl traveling alone
Right.
because they have a photographer there that the network wanted to use. And I got to meet Jacqueline Smith and all these, stars that I had watched, Mr. T, all these different people. Now, are those my favorite? Well, no. I mean, I like the newsmakers,
Yeah.
but that was really a heady experience for a young girl to be able to meet people that I had
Well,
watched
you go
on
to
television
Nashville,
as
too,
a
on the
child.
red carpet.
I go to Nashville a lot. I interviewed Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, Lionel Richie for American Idol. So I got to know the executive producers of that. And then, really the most recently, on a sad note, but I was honored to be a part of this and tell the story. I was interviewed by ABC for 2020, and it was on the John Berry story.
I watched that, yes.
And it really took me back. I've gotten to know Joan Berry very well over the years. We're friends. And
It was
that
a very
was so
sad situation.
so sad, but her strength, I'm so glad that they shared this story now 20 years later, because she is one of the strongest people I know. And she was able to affect change with DNA laws. And now she's still working, trying to get them in other states. Not all states have those. So my hat's off to her. So, there have been times when certainly I've talked with, I covered Bill Clinton when he was governor in Arkansas. And I thought, wow, he was very accessible to the media.
And he's got a presence, too.
Yes, he does. He's very tall. He's very tall. Yes, and he does have a commanding presence. I've interviewed Hillary Clinton. I've interviewed, governors. But I go back to, yes, that's exciting. And yes, I'm glad when it works out great. And maybe you ask a question that they haven't really answered, and you make that news. You get that little soundbite that nobody else has. I'm very competitive, and I know the culture has changed a little bit through the years, where now it's more of a community of journalists, even though you're from competing stations.
You'll probably know each other, I'm sure.
Yes,
you do.
but you know what? If it's breaking news, all bets are off. I'm competitive. So
And I get the tickle every time I think of just how many Williams has been on there. Carl Williams and Phil Williams, and then
Bill
Alan
Williams,
and Bill Williams.
Bo Williams.
Yeah.
So many people ask Bo, are you related to Bill Williams?
My grandma years ago, Carl Williams was a big tall man. My
Yeah.
grandmother used to watch him. But then you go to my name, and there's Bob Bell and Don Bell and Dan
Right.
Bell, and then you go to Wayne Bell used to be high in the sky, and I think, these Bell,
Bells.
and we all kind of know each other,
Sure.
It's kind of funny how
That is funny. I never
it-
really thought about the Williams thing.
there's a lot of Williams,
Yeah.
which of course that's a pretty common name
Sure.
and everything, But, going back to the Smokies, I want to touch that a little bit again.
Yeah.
Of course, Randy Boyd moving it back to Knoxville and revitalizing that area down there. It's got a different, I was kind of involved in it a little bit up at because I saw it move too, and I've got ticket stubs from each one.
Oh.
Yeah, got them set up in my house from each first game, or not Bill Myers' last game, but
Oh,
the first
wow.
of the rest of them. But it had a smaller feel up there, but had a friendly feel. And now it's really nice inside. But the one thing that Chris Allen, and you might have met him, the president and COO of the Smokies that runs it. He said that he wanted his park, and he had managed many others, to be the most friendly park there is. He wants his
And it
staff.
says that.
Yeah, he
when you
wants
go
his
in.
staff to be. He wants people to come and actually have a great time
Yeah.
down there. And I do think, Lori, don't you, that you're going to see other things across the street. You're going to
Oh,
see
sure.
that area really revitalized down
Yes.
there.
Yes, and we are doing stories on that constantly, on new things popping up, new restaurants we learn going in, new buildings, and it's really a joy to see that area kind of flourish. And it'll be interesting to see maybe 5 years down the road what it's going to look
See
like.
the growth of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we hear from our viewers, and they are so interested in development, growth. We have so many people moving here from all over the country, mainly California and parts of the Midwest. And they want to know. They want to know what's going on. Where's the best place to live? What's going on? How's your downtown? You remember when downtown Knoxville was not anything. It was a ghost town.
Downtown Knoxville, when I was even, let's say, high school age, 70s for me, 70s, Gay Street was not a very nice place. And I think
It wasn't a tourist destination.
no, it wasn't. And the university was different.
Right.
It was going through a real change at that time. And I think Victor Ashe did some changing involved in, there was a lot of people involved in changing things. And I think the World's Fair, don't you? I think it really helped change a lot of the things that,
Yes.
that was kind of your first real cleanup, what I call, of making the scruffy city look a little.
Right, right. I think so. At least it got a lot of eyes, a ton of eyes on Knoxville. And then let's keep it. Let's keep the Sun Sphere. Let's keep these different things. And I know the amphitheater is going to be revitalized. And so there are efforts.
Just got through painting our sphere
Yes.
over there blue now.
Yes. Back to the original.
But that really looks good.
It looks great. It really
mean,
pops.
I really-
and what a nice icon to have.
Yeah, Knoxville is the whole area. If you take, I pulled up, I didn't know, if you actually took Metro Knoxville, you're looking at nearly 1 million people here. You've got your mountains, your Gatlinburg, your Pigeon Forge, you got your, the Pellissippi corridor with Maryville and Alcoa and Oak Ridge, and then you got your those small places you can go to, and Lenore City and Loudon and all. East Tennessee as a whole, in the Knoxville area, just a wonderful place, isn't it?
It is, and I encourage people who maybe don't go out of their sphere of their neighborhood too much, because I often hear, "Oh, that's too far. You're in West Knoxville. I'm over in North Knoxville. That's too far to go." Well, you're looking at a girl who moved here from Houston.
Yeah.
Anywhere was an hour,
Yeah.
And so I want to say, branch out a little bit. Enjoy what our area has to offer. Take time to go to the mountains. Take time. Don't think, oh, just the tourists are going.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people do, but take time to go on that hike if you can, if you're physically able. Take time to go to Aspire Park.
Yeah.
Get outside. We are so blessed. And there's a part of Pellissippi Parkway on the way to Alcoa where you go over the river. And it's the most beautiful part
I've been there.
of our area. You know exactly
you
what I'm
kind of go
talking
across
about.
that and turn to the right and go down there.
Yes.
And there's a little park, and I can't even, it's been a long time, but I have been to exactly where you're talking
beautiful,
about.
and I just look over there, and every time I drive over there, and I drive over there a lot, I just say thank you, God, for putting me here. What a beautiful place.
That's so funny bringing up what you said about not going, because when we came up in Oak Ridge, where I grew up, our parents, you went out maybe once a week and ate out nice somewhere. My parents, back then they dressed up.
That's what you did.
They dressed up and maybe went with another couple to Regas or somewhere. But here's what was always said to the neighbor: all the way to Knoxville. That was like all the way to Knoxville.
But it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
But I just remember driving down the Southwest Freeway. Our youngest daughter, Sarah, was in her car seat and she had manipulated a way to climb out of it. So I'm driving there, racing to get to work. I had to take her with me because I couldn't get a babysitter. Our other daughter, Kelsey, was in school. I've got one hand on her, one hand on here, trying to dig for quarters because they didn't have easy passes then, and I had to pay tolls. So very stressful. And then the news director would say, well, go downtown. Which downtown? What, go interview the mayor downtown. Okay. There are 3 really separate areas. So it was a lot. It was a lot. So yes, a 15-minute drive, 20-minute drive to a different part of town is nothing for me.
Somebody said if you were in Oklahoma City, it's one of the largest in the area that, like,
flat.
I mean, it's just big.
Yep.
The area's big, It's just like, really, I told someone the other day, I said, we don't think now, if you want to go to West Knoxville and eat somewhere, you can really be over there from where we live quicker than somebody in North Knoxville,
Sure.
It's not
sure.
that far,
No.
And now having the Smokies.
Traffic's a little iffy, but
having the Smokies, it knocked 15, 20 minutes off,
Right.
going down. And I want people to understand this too, and you know this now. We were scared, everybody, I think. The parking's not a problem right now. It was been pretty easy to, they have the handicap under the bridge and they have like zones and stuff. But I noticed that, as people go, they're getting more familiar with that.
Right. Well, and here's something, because, we have editorial meetings every morning and afternoon. And back when all this was happening, and we were hearing from people, where do I park? What's happening? We actually did a bunch of in-depth stuff. We would have a reporter go to the State Street Garage and walk it and see how long it took. Or we would have somebody go somewhere else and park. And then we did a study and we looked at, and I know that Randy Boyd and his folks did as well. When you look at all the major stadiums around the country, there's no parking. They're not in areas where there's a big, cushy parking lot. You've got to figure it out. Neyland Stadium. Lots of people walk, from here and there.
Well, you're looking at over 100,000 there.
Correct.
And then you're looking at 20-something thousand at Food City Center now.
Correct.
Thompson Bowling.
And a fraction of that
And then you've got
at the
your
stadium.
Coliseum, about 5,000-6,000. And this another 7,000 here or whatever, And I just love the area. And I know.
I do too.
And I know you working here, a person that stays this long, that you enjoy your job and you enjoy your community. You can almost just tell it in your actions.
Oh.
And, we're going to wrap it up here just a little bit, but you've got some awards. I looked over Everard Merle Award. I want to talk
That
about
was
that.
a team award. That wasn't just me. That was our 11 o'clock newscast several years ago, and I'm so proud of that.
And then you also got an anchor award for being one of the best anchors. I saw that.
Yeah, I got Best Anchor. That's been a few years ago now, too, through SBJ.
I did a little research.
You
just a
sure
little bit
did, Don.
anyway, yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm very honored to receive that because we have a lot of talented anchors, reporters, journalists first here. And it's a pleasure to work across the street from them. And we are friendly when we are out and about and we say hello. But yeah, I still have that competitive edge.
And the building you're in, talk a little bit about Channel 6 and Greystone, a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
The old building, and some people say it could be a little,
Could be.
I've heard stories.
Oh, yes. And I've had a few experiences. You'll have to have Bo Williams and Kim Weathers here because they've had experiences as well. But it's a beautiful building. And we always like to say, we work in a home. So that's like family. Yeah. And it really is.
Do you actually know where the old kitchen was?
Yes.
So you do know what it might have looked like back then?
Oh, yes. And we still have the original woodwork there. So when you walk in, and you've been in our lobby a lot.
So when I walked in the lobby, and what's the little girl? I can't think.
Amy.
Yeah, was there. Would that be where somebody would walk into their den or living room?
The parlor.
Okay,
the parlor. And if you look up at all the woodwork, that was all there. We have old pictures showing what it was back in the day. And kudos to management at WATE for keeping it historically accurate. You know, trying to really keep that part of the building as, you know, significant as it was back in the day.
Right.
And, you know, Major Camp built a beautiful home.
Yeah.
And many people have said they have seen him through the years when we did bathroom renovations. We have gorgeous bathrooms now. Some of the people who clean the building said, "Oh, they're out. The spirits are out because we're messing with the building."
I don't like that.
No, I have smelled bacon and eggs cooking when there's nowhere for them to be
Really?
cooked, like you're making them in your kitchen. And Major Camp used to like to make breakfast for his family. So,
You never know, do you?
yeah,
You know.
take that with a grain of salt. But, you know, maybe if there are spirits there, they're benevolent and they're happy we're there and just want us to do a good job.
Well, Lori, I always give the opportunity that when I host a show to give you a chance to say something to our community, Anderson
Aw.
County, of course, and anything that you'd like to tell them or talk about just a little bit. I'm going to give you that opportunity right now.
Oh, Don, thank you so much. And thank you for having me here today and for your friendship. We've gotten to visit a lot over the years.
Yeah, we turned the tables, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And I much prefer everyone asking the questions instead of being on this side. But I just want to thank you, anyone who's watching right now. Thank you for watching us on WATE 6 On Your Side. I know we say we're on your side. We are. We mean that. We really are. We talk about stories that would benefit you, things that matter to you. It's really what we live every day, and I am blessed to be a part of this community. And I don't just mean Knoxville, of course, I mean the entire East Tennessee community. You all have welcomed me with open arms for 32 years now, and hopefully it'll be at least a few more years before I go spend more time with my grandbabies. But I enjoy it, I love it, and I can't imagine doing anything else. So thank you for watching.
Lord, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed your time here today.
I have.
And folks, stay tuned for another good show right here on ACTV, and you have a good one. Thank you.